So would you guys mind if I got you to tell me about what it was like in Idaho when I was young, and I recorded it for posterity so I could have it? Because I've been thinking a lot about, like, just where I come from. And I remember, I think it was you guys' 50th anniversary. I think I sat in this chair, and you told me a whole bunch about being in Gooding and stuff. Very long ago.
He wants you to tell him about growing up in Gooding.
Or how did you land in Gooding? Why did you grow up in Gooding? Where did your folks come
I'll show you a picture of the place when I was back in the well, actually it was the early 20s.
You were born in...
Yeah, 1924.
Huh.
Born in 24.
Where we lived in. I've got a picture on the TV in there.
On computer.
Yeah, my dad was, of course, this was before the Depression, and they had a grocery store. You look at the building and you can't believe. Then, of course, that's 80-some years ago, and it's changed quite a bit. I got a picture of it here. We were over there some time back.
Is it still standing? No?
Yeah, the building is somewhat standing. And folks had this grocery store, and they had a truck line, and they delivered produce to up around Sun Valley, Ketchum. It wasn't in those days. There wasn't any Sun Valley in those days, but anyway, they were up there, and they had all over that country, Peekaboo and our Camas Prairie, and all those places that they delivered groceries and produce. And anyway, they had a packing company. They put in a great big cellar, and they buy potatoes whole
truckload. Yeah.
And then in the wintertime, they'd sort them, and they'd ship them on Union Pacific to east to the market there.
This is in Shoshone. This is in Gooding. This is in Gooding?
This is in Gooding.
Okay.
Yeah. And they also had a freezing plant.
Storage.
Yeah, and I can remember they had kind of a tramway that went into the freezer, and they killed turkeys, and they froze them and shipped them east. And I can still remember the guys
wringing the necks of turkeys,
getting the feathers off of those turkeys, and
but it was smelly.
Like that it was pretty smelly.
That was part of the operation.
This is what your dad did for work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they had a grocery store. We went to Nebraska after the Depression. Of course, it got to be where everybody went broke.
Even so, this is in 20, like, you were born in 24, so
yeah.
The Depression happened in 29.
Yeah,
it's been like early 30s.
When the Depression, this is pre-29.
So that even hit in Idaho, huh?
Oh, yeah. It was terrible. They had these potatoes, they couldn't sell them. They couldn't get...
Because nobody had any money to buy them.
They couldn't get enough for the potatoes to pay for the sacks that they were in.
Right.
And
unbelievable.
So everybody went broke. And my Grandma Lenker lived in Steel City, Nebraska. And when she died, she left a couple of farms to my dad. Well, my dad wasn't one for farming. He didn't like to work. And anyway, he went to Nebraska and was there for a couple of years. And when we came back then to Gooding, he got to selling automobiles, Studebaker cars. He was sold Studebaker cars for a long time. And,
Did he start the dealership in Gooding, or was there already one there and he just worked for it, or?
yeah, in Gooding, yeah.
Hmm.
And, he sold those cars. And then they bought this, it was the old Palmer Hotel. Now, there was an old woman on the East Coast that was pretty well heeled, and she had a thing where she'd build these hotels all along the Union Pacific, and
For the railroad work.
the railroad, yeah, and in all these little towns. Well, anyway, of course, it got to be where the hotel wasn't profitable at all, the hotel.
Mm.
And we came back from Nebraska. They bought this hotel.
Your dad did?
Yeah. More my mother than my dad.
She was one that had the money.
Oh, so this is grandma, okay.
And I think they paid $20,000 for it. Of course, you could buy a brand new house for $1,500 in those days.
Oh my goodness.
And
So this
in
is,
fact,
this is
you could buy a new Chevrolet car for $300 and some dollars. So things really have changed, haven't they? But anyway, they bought this hotel and made it into an apartment house. And my mother run that, and growing up, I did most of the work on the thing. I did the painting, the electrical work, the carpentry, and
Plumbing.
You name it.
Electrical.
Electrical, I did all that.
And your dad in the meantime was working at the store? Or
No,
he
he
was
got
selling
into the store
Studebakers?
before we went to Nebraska.
Okay.
No, he was out trying to sell Studebaker
Yep,
cars.
okay.
And he wasn't handy.
Right, well, so I'm figuring out. So is the hotel still there? Or the building? Is it?
Got a picture of it in here.
Okay.
So I'll show it to you after
Is
this.
it wooden? It's a wooden building.
Brick.
Oh, it's brick. Oh, okay.
Two-story, high ceilings, and long.
Yeah, it had 12-foot ceilings downstairs, 9-foot ceilings upstairs.
Wow.
And
How they did that back then?
Lived there until
I went into the service. When the war came along, I went
Just be like 38?
to Boise, to Gowan Field, and I was going to see about joining the Air Force.
How old are you?
around 40.
40.
He graduated from high school at 42.
Okay.
And
You were like
before
16?
that, I've been in the 116th Cavalry National Guard.
Before this?
Before this, I was only about 17, maybe barely 17.
Did you lie about your age?
And anyway, well, they didn't ask any questions.
Oh, I see.
Anyway,
They wanted you.
we'd ride these horses and had these big old brim hats
Mm-hmm.
and leggings, and you had them put on the saddles that you rode. And anyway, I wasn't much for horses. I was afraid of them, and they didn't like me.
That's like me.
But I remember when I first joined, they had this big, what was it, indoor place where they drilled with the horses, you know. And anyway, they had these standards. You're supposed to jump over on your horse. Well, I didn't know how to do that. In fact, I had trouble. They would give me kind of a spooky horse anyway. And he didn't want me to put the holder on him. And I finally got somebody to help him, the staff sergeant, stable sergeant, helped me get the thing together. And anyway, I got on this horse, and you'd ride around. Well, then you'd come up, and they had these standards. They'd raise them up just like you did for high jumping. And we'd jump the horse with over. Well, anyway, they thought it was big fun because I come up there, and this old horse, he got up there, and he didn't want to jump. He stopped. And about that time, the first sergeant came up with a belt and popped him on the back, and he jumped. And I went right on over the horse, and they thought that was big fun.
Yes, they did.
And anyway, you was in there until the war started.
Then you went to Gallen Field.
And they had the general inspection. They had a brigadier general come down, and they had a sign up there, and they was activating the outfit to go and send them to the Pacific, but they was going to change it to mechanized cavalry. They was going to get rid of the horses, I think. Anyway, the general came down the line, and he had the captain there and the first sergeant, and all of them was in this line, and he comes to me, and I think I looked pretty young, and he said, soldier, he said, how old are you? I said, 17, sir. He turned to the captain, and he said, did you hear what he said? He said he was 17. And the captain turned to the first sergeant. Did you know he was only 17? So they just passed him up. So anyway, they left out of the service. Yes, an honorable.
Okay. Were you the only one who was 17, or were there?
Yeah.
Were you the only one who was 17? Were you the only one in your
no.
who was 17? No, there were some others.
Others there. I think Jerry had my buddy Jim Schmidt.
Oh,
He was in there too. And he and I were in the same grade in school and same age. And
well, everybody, they were drafting everybody that was 18, because of the war.
yeah,
So he knew he was going to be, his number would be called up.
your uncle Ann and Scott were going to be going to Oregon City to work in the shipyard. Well, I went with them, and I took some courses and got in as an electrician, a journeyman electrician. And
So were you working for the service at this point?
no, I worked in the shipyard.
Okay.
We was making tankers,
Mm-hmm.
and I was working in an electric shop. In fact, I had a crew that were working on me. I was only 18 at the time.
No kidding.
And anyway, I was real active in the church.
He got saved in Gooding.
In Gooding. And what had happened, there's a woman came to our town, a young lady, and we had an apartment there, this front apartment downstairs, and she said to my mother and sister Grace, she said, no, well, she didn't know why she had come there. She said,
Felt like the Lord wanted her to come from the East Coast
come to Gooding.
to Gooding.
So anyway, she said, what would you think if I'd hold some Bible studies in your apartment? So she did. And anyway, granted, her exegesis was a little bit, looking back on it, was probably not as well-grounded as it might have been. But anyway,
What was her exegesis, if you sum it up?
She was quite evangelistic in her approach, and she told us to know about being saved, and so anyway, I got under conviction, and I had a room back on the court, inside the court there at the apartment house, and anyway, I thought, I want to become a Christian. And they had a big old family Bible was up on top of this old Motor Maytag refrigerator. And I got it down, I was trying to read it. Of course, I just opened up the front, and you didn't get too far. I read the gaps.
I'll just start at the beginning, huh?
Yeah. And, but anyway, she had grounded it enough. So I got down by my bedside and prayed through.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing some things that, you know, high school kids do. I was smoking and kids I run drank some. And but anyway, I took all that stuff and threw it in the furnace. And anyway, then when I got to Oregon City, I got real active in this the little Nazarene church there in.
Did you pick the Nazarene church? Because
well, that's a strange story too. This Virgie Mae Weber, this young lady, she was trying to what you'd call it, kind of guide us in the way to go. And she said, I've been going around from all the churches and trying to think where you ought to go. She was Southern Baptist. So she said, really, you know, Baptists believe that you need to make a public confession when you've been saved. So anyway, when my sister Grace and my mother got saved at the same time. So she made arrangements with the Baptist church first, and of course they didn't have anybody that had been there forever that had done this, and the preacher didn't know too much how to do it and what was going on. But anyway, he gave us an opportunity to get up there and stumble through explaining what had happened.
What the Lord had done for him.
Yeah. But there was a couple old ladies there in the church that knew what it was all about. Grandma Harms and Aunt Hattie. Anyway, they kind of, you know, they kind of warmed up to us. Well, anyway, this Virgin May said, well, he said, I've looked around. I don't think that's the place for you. So they had this little tiny church, and I said, the whole auditorium wasn't much bigger than this room right here. It was a little stone church.
No kidding. In Gooding.
Nazarene church.
And they had a woman preacher. And anyway, she said, I think I've visited around, and she said, I think that'd be the best place for you to go. And that's how I was introduced to the Nazarene church.
Huh. Virgie Mae, that was her name?
Virgie Mae, yeah. And well, and later she became an evangelist in the Nazarene church.
No kidding.
It's strange how things work out.
So when you got to Oregon City, you went to the Nazarene church.
I went to the Nazarene church. Well, I thought it was a big church, but it was, you know, for nowadays it wasn't that big. But they kind of took me under their wing. And I remember old Brother Tucker. He said, I think you ought to come up and sing with us in the choir. He says, you come up and sit by me. He sang bass.
Uh-huh.
He said, I said, we'll sing, you know, in the choir. So I did, and that's how I kind of got introduced to singing. And our family's been very singing through the years. And where I worked in the shipyard, it's kind of strange. I told the superintendent of that department of the electric shop, I said, I'd like to get Sundays off. And he said, I'm by the name of Christian, honey. He said, well, I'm a Christian. He said, I can understand how it is, but he said, I can't bend the rules. He said that it's set up so that they go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you have 7 days on and a day off. So only once every 7 weeks you have a day off on Sunday. And he said, I guess the only solution would be if you take your time and a half day off every week. So I elected to do that.
No kidding, Grandpa.
And but became real active in this little church there in Oregon City. And
I think he got really grounded, you know, in a Christian way. In this brief time he had from graduation from high school before he was drafted into the service.
But
it was about a year long, huh? Before.
There was another thing that was kind of interesting. When we went into the service, they had a sending service. You know, these young men are going into the service, and want to have kind of a service to recognize this, and we'll pray for them and all of that. Well, anyway, they did this, and this is a whole other story.
And they said, ask if there were people would come in to pray for these two young men, you know, as they go off to war, all through the work. And there were, you know, people who agreed to do this. And
Well, anyway, after we were at Prospect pastoring, there was a lady that was kind of head of the missionary department in the church. She came up there and she said, you know, you have a big family, and the people in Oregon City would like to do something, you know, for you. He said, they had somebody in the church said, they imagined that for that big a family, you could sure use a dishwasher. They said, well, we'll pay for the thing. You just go to Medford and pick out the best one you can find, and we'll pay for it. And so anyway, I went and they said it'll be yours, not the church's. And so anyway, that was part of the story. And then this family in the Oregon City church raised cattle. I mean, they didn't raise cattle. They had pasture, and they raised
their own meat. You know,
their own
meat.
And they said, we think it'd be a nice thing that we get another bum steer and raise one for the pasture there at Prospect. So they raised the thing. We'd go to camp meeting. They'd have the thing butchered and frozen, cut and up and frozen, and we'd take it back to good. Well, it just happened that this family, the old grandmother, was one of the ladies that was in that sending service.
No kidding. Did she remember you, or did?
No, I think we got to visiting, and he mentioned that he had attended the Oregon City Church at one time when he was a young man. So this led to, you know, telling the story. And this lady had been at the service and had agreed to pray for him.
No kidding.
And the interesting part of it was the other person that went into the service, a fellow by the name of
Arnold Carlson.
Arnold Carlson. He went to Nazarene College, and he was pastoring of the church in
Albany?
Eugene,
Albany.
Springfield. No,
Springfield, I guess.
The Springfield Church. And
both of them came back and went
both
into
came back. Both, you know, we didn't keep in touch with each other, but we both went to college, and both became pastors in the Nazarene Church.
No kidding.
Isn't that strange how things work?
Yeah.
And anyway,
so you had the sending service, and then you went off to war.
And then he went into the...
Yeah, I went off to war and ended up... Actually, when I took the test to go in the service, they had... I don't know what you put on the test. They knew what you'd been doing. And they had me down to go to Camp Lee, Virginia, to was it APO, the meal service in the military?
Right.
I think that's what it was. anyway, that was what, they had a detail of us on a train that went, and I think it was, I don't know, half a dozen or a little more. And I was kind of appointed in charge of taking that group to Kansas City on a train.
Mhm.
And I got up there. Well, anyway, they asked for, they had 2 openings, and they had, say, 7 guys or something like that. And so they eliminated. So you didn't do that. You went into something else. And in fact, they were going to ship us to the Pacific, and we got on a troop train, our outfit, and went to the Presidio of San Francisco, and they were going to send us to the South Pacific. We got over there, and something, the orders got changed or something, and they had us get back on the train and go clear back to New York.
Oh, no kidding. And head the other direction.
Yeah.
And we went to Europe.
Hmm.
And
How long were you in Europe for?
oh my, pretty much all the way through the American involvement there.
World War
And
II.
we,
Would it have been 3 years or 5 years or?
no, less than that. Went over on
Let me think.
the SS Rangatata was the name of the old boat. It was actually a refrigerator boat from New Zealand or someplace down there, and they turned it into a troop transport.
Mhm.
And of course, at that time, I don't know if you watched these documentaries on the war at all, but anyway,
Some.
they had the U-boats were sinking. These
Oh,
ships,
true.
you know, right up there. Well, anyway, this old boat couldn't keep up with the convoy, and besides that, they had sparks coming out of the funnel on the thing, and you know, which was a giveaway about the convoy. And so they were going to make us drop out of the convoy, but finally they got the thing put together good enough that we did make it to Liverpool, and we were there for I don't know how long, up until the time that they had the invasion, and we were in Plymouth. We were in Plymouth.
Normandy? Is that
Yeah.
for them?
Yeah,
Right.
we were in Plymouth, England, and we were on the boat during the invasion, in all these boats going across the English Channel,
Mhm.
and anyway,
He landed on Omaha.
we got there. It was stormy. You know, the weather was a big factor in that invasion.
Mhm.
And anyway, the sea was pretty rough. And they had us on this ship. It wasn't a big ship, but it was a ship anyway. They had these nets that went down on net ladders that hang over the side of the ship. And you had to climb down over that with a full pack on. And you got on a landing barge. And anyway,
The landing barge, was it big? Was it a little thing?
it's a fairly small thing,
Mhm.
where they just run them in and run them up on the beach.
Mm. Were they rubber rafts or?
No, it was a metal thing. It had a door on the front that went down.
Is that like in Saving Private Ryan? I don't know if you.
Probably, yeah.
And there's kind of high walls, and you're kind of sit down or
Yeah.
in there with the rest of the troops. Okay.
And anyway, they ran it up on the beach, and we had to wade ashore. And of course, it was not a very good experience.
Were you under fire from the moment that you got to the beach?
Right during the invasion.
Mm-hmm.
And we were there for about a day. Of course, they had to have supplies up there. They got all those men coming ashore. And they had us there off the beach. We had to climb up this steep cliff thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we was right up on top of that, and they had us dig in a foxholes on top of that ridge up that top of the cliff, and the Germans were strafing and anti-air, just like fireworks, anti-aircraft fire going all night long, and it kind of interrupted one's sleep. And but that was that part of it. And,
Dad told me this story about you and a buddy maybe getting separated from the company. And
okay, what happened? This outfit that we were in, during World War II, there was no front line. It was a fluid sort of thing. But this was a supply outfit, and
your outfit was a supply outfit.
a truck head, where you go up and the guys that were right on the front, we take the supplies right up to them. Well, anyway, there were about three of us fellas. They put us on a guard sort of thing, and we had a 50 caliber machine gun on an aircraft mount, and we were supposed to shoot any airplanes that come along straight. Unfortunately, I never shot at any of them, but there's a time or two when it came close. But anyway, we followed with that outfit, and we got up as far as we never went to Paris. We went up to Holland, and crossed they were shooting across the Ruhr River in Holland. And I remember we were dug in, and it was miserable. You dig a trench, and you get in the trench, and the trench is filled with water. And you sleep like in a bathtub, full of muddy water. But you want to keep,
It's out of the gun, out of the empire.
It was very uncomfortable. And anyway, they did cross the Ruhr. We went across there, and anyway, we finally then we're in Belgium. This is the story that Louis was talking about. We did the same thing. We had this machine gun set out there on an aircraft mount, and it was kind of a little dinky thing along the railroad where we got in out of the weather. And we were in that thing. And anyway, the Germans made a break on the Volksturm. The People's Army came in, and drove in, and young kids put near, and they were down to that thing. It was a desperation sort of a situation. And they came in with their Panzer divisions, and we were about 5 miles from Bastogne. I don't know whether you've heard of the Battle of Bastogne or not. That was one of the biggies. And anyway, these Panzer divisions were between us and Bastogne. It was no distance at all. And anyway, they had to dig in along the fence line, and they gave me a bazooka. You know what a bazooka is? Well, I wasn't about it. They said, if this German tank comes down here, well, you want to shoot it with that bazooka. Well, I wasn't about to shoot any tank with a bazooka. You wouldn't even knock a dead in it. But anyway, they gave Louis, that was my buddy, they gave him a rifle grenade, a grenade launcher that went on the end of a rifle thing that you shoot this, quarter pound of TNT off of the end of his rifle. And I guess he was supposed to shoot tanks with that too. But anyway, we were in the Ardennes, and there was lots of wild boar. And we'd gone out, the company had gone out trying to get some meat for the mess, and they'd go out through these trees. They were kind of all of the size sort of thing, and these wild pigs were down in there. Well, anyway, we'd line up and come out, and we'd chase the pigs out, and somebody would shoot them. Mm-hmm. So we got some pigs. And anyway, we were going along this fence row, and we hadn't eaten anything for a day or so. And so the person, the mess sergeant, came along, and he had a flour sack with, he fried up those pigs, those boars, and had a bunch of bread as such, and passed it out along this line. And that was the last thing that we ate for quite a while. But anyway, finally they came up and they said, we're getting out of here, because they were trying to evacuate out of the 8th Corps out of towards Houffalize, and we were 20 miles behind the German lines. And so anyway, you had to get in the back of a truck. We went down a ways, and finally they pulled over into the brush and into the trees and said, everybody out, and you guys dig in, because, we're going to have to try to work our way out. Well, anyway, we dug in too good or something. But about the time they did that, they changed their mind. And they had them load up, and they took off. And there we were, Lewis and I, and a guy from the artillery outfit, I think it was. Anyway, he was with us, and we decided, this Louis was a pretty smart cookie. He knew things pretty well, and he kind of had a feeling of what we should do. He said, we need to go up towards Houffalize. So that's where they're going to try to get 8th Corps out. So we were many miles, and we walked in the trees, the snow on the ground. It was miserable. We got down there, finally we saw a roadblock up ahead. We didn't know whether it was German or American. I said, well, let's kind of not get single file, kind of stagger out, go up there, and if it happens to be German and they go to shooting at us, well, we can hit the brush and maybe one of us, or two of us get away. And anyway, we got up there, and it happened, it was an American half-track with quad 50 on it.
What's that mean?
4 50-gallon machine guns on the back of it. And anyway, we got on this, they got on there, they said, you guys can come with us, we're pulling out. And we got us to a place called Houffalize. It was in a kind of a canyon. And we were in kind of a sportsman's lodge. I remember that they had these boar hunters lodge. They had the heads, mounted heads to the great big old boar hog heads on the wall. I kind of remember that. But anyway, they said, there's a haystack over here, so you guys go dig into the haystack, because it was cold. And he said, there's an overpass on this canyon road, and the Germans are going to be coming right after us. He said, and we've got that ordnance put on that to blow it up. And he said, when they do, we're coming down, and we want to be ready to go, because we're not going to wait for anybody. When you say go, you better go. And so pretty soon we heard the blast where they blew up the thing as it was delaying action. And anyway, of course, we went out and got the back of an old truck, and got up to 82nd Airborne. Those guys were in there, and we hadn't eaten for, I don't know, a long time. I was pretty hungry. And they had a great big old kettle full of sea rations, kind of a mulligan stew. And about 500 eating that. It tasted good. And it was sort of the same thing. When we left there, we went up just over the hill from Malmedy. I don't know whether you heard about the Malmedy massacre. You're not into that. Well, anyway, that was a place where the Germans had put on American uniforms, and they stopped this group of people and soldiers, and they had their trucks there, and they just had machine guns, and they just mowed down a whole bunch of them. I think there was one or two out of the whole bunch that didn't get killed. Wow. They called that the Malmedy massacre. Well, anyway, we were just across.
Had that happened before? Before you got there?
No, this is afterwards.
Okay.
And anyway, this 82nd Airborne guys, I don't know whether they dropped us off there or whether we hitchhiked or how we got there, but there was an outfit of Scottish Highland troops that were in a old schoolhouse, and we kind of got with them. And anyway, at that time they were sending these V1 rockets, these buzz bombs. Well, anyway, they had a ton of TNT on them. They packed quite a wallet, And we'd had them land up there in this place, Korby, where we were up there to begin with. But anyway, they hear one of them buzz bombs coming. They had that ramjet, is the way they operated. And they didn't have any moving parts, but they had a funnel, and we got them up to speed by the air would force in there and mix with the fuel, and then it propelled the things, but they weren't very accurate. And the guidance mechanisms weren't that good, so they didn't know where they was going to land. And one of the things landed in the field not too far from where we were, and it blew all the windows out of this old schoolhouse. But anyway, this was on Christmas Day. And first time there'd been a break in the weather. And here came the American bombers. It was over 1,000 bombers went right over the top of us. Oh, wow. And we were just over the hill from Malmedy. Here was this Malmedy here, and we were just over the hump from that right in here. And of course, the Germans had their anti-aircraft guns set up back on this side of the hill. Well, anyway, they started shooting those bombers. And boy, they was falling out of the sky. I don't know how many, some of them you see the guys parachute out, and some didn't. And but anyway, but it was clear enough that they just unloaded on them with enemy aircraft, with their bombing raid, and that was the turning point then when they stopped.
Then you came home?
Yeah, eventually. Yeah, we ended up different things that we did. After the war, we were in a place called Sindorf. Actually, the Americans could have taken Berlin, but they let the Russians come in and take it, And but anyway, the Germans didn't want the Russians doing it. They'd rather have the Americans because they know that we'd treat them halfway decent. And because those Russians were pretty mean, they had reasons to be mad because they'd been treated pretty badly during the war with the Germans. And I had rigged up 2 or 3 times I've done this, we've captured stuff, and I'd rig it up like, they have these, generators for, anti-aircraft guns. They'd be diesel generators, and we'd get one, and I'd get the thing all going good, and so we could have electricity. And, anyway, the powers to be, they confiscated the thing after we got to go. But in this indoor, it was, they had a radio center. And in there, they had a diesel generator. And the guys they had these buildings, and guys were sleeping in those buildings, and, well, anyway, I got this generator going, and I took communication cables and paired the wires. In other words, you take a half a dozen leads and put it together so you get enough to carry the juice, and took it up and put it to the this building where the GIs were. And anyway, in the middle of the night, they'd run their radios and they'd run their stuff in there. They were trying to use electric. Well, they'd overload the thing and the thing would kick out. And anyway, the first sergeant said, is there anything you can do about that? I said, well, probably is. So the next time they called on me to go down and get the thing going again, I switched the voltage over on the thing to where instead of running the standard voltage that they used, that you could have a variable thing on, so you could increase the voltage by several times, and the thing hummed a minute, and pretty soon the lights went on bright again. What I did, I put the primaries out of all the radios.
Oh, man.
And the first sergeant was with his radio went like a light too. No, he had electricity then.
They weren't happy with you then. Yeah.
Anyway, they had a bunch of these SS troops in the place. And they wanted us to take and transport them up to the Nuremberg trial. We had these guys on this train, and really the train was just these cars, just bumper cars, how they are. They don't have regular hooks like American cars. And anyway, they had these guys, and it was a mess. And about half of them were sick, and some of them fainted and sick. And we finally got up to pretty close to Sindorf, closest we get to the railroad, and we was going to march all these SS troopers. And my disposition isn't to be particularly mean. But here you had all those guys, and they're marching them up there and marching them up there, a long column of them. Pretty soon they got some stragglers. Well, I ended up on the tail end with about a dozen or so stragglers, and they were claiming to be crippled and sick and couldn't go any faster, and so we got kind of cut off and left. I didn't know what to do here. I couldn't handle that many people all by myself.
Yeah.
And of course these were the mean of the mean.
Yeah.
These SS troopers, and anyway, I was just about to despair when here came down 2 or 3 MPs, military police, and they could talk German. And I couldn't understand all the German, but what they said made quite an impression on these troopers.
They all said
they'd yell at them, and they'd go to the long with the bayonet a little bit, and they'd be stepping on. I could hardly keep up with them going up the hill. Those guys could march them up there. And I was glad to get out of that mess.
I bet. I couldn't turn ugly.
It's kind of...
So how did you meet Grandma?
Well, we had a place there at college. We called it Vetville. They had a bunch of these old fiberglass, or not fiberglass, but composition trailer houses that they had, and they were using them for barracks. And they'd have 3 or 4 of us in one of these things.
Uh-huh.
And this one kid.
Is this at NNC? Grandma, is this at NNC?
Yes.
Okay.
He said, you know, I'll tell you what, he said, if I was a little bit older, I'd have Lucille to go out with me. Says he, I think she's a nice lady, a girl. And she was a senior and he was a freshman, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, he kind of the one that sicked me on the glue.
It's all his fault.
So anyway, they had a group of the gang that we run around. There's a fella out in Melba, Korby.
No, it was not Melba, Tuna.
Mm.
Anyway, the pastor there and his family and a couple of his daughters were involved in this group, and they'd go out there on Sundays. So anyway, we went out there with them a few times, and that was how I got introduced to Lou.
And he tricked you into liking him, huh?
But she was kind of a desperate senior, you see, and I was just a
Well,
freshman.
that's what he said. I was a desperate senior. And he was a hapless freshman. Couldn't defend himself.
So, Grandma, what was your major in college?
English lit.
Mm.
I was going to teach high school English.
So what happened if you were a senior? You graduated and Grandpa had a long ways to go.
I taught school up in northern Idaho, a one-room schoolhouse.
Did you guys have communication, or?
Oh yeah, we wrote every day to each other. I was rooming with a widow lady who had a bachelor son, and he used to pick up the mail at the post office and bring it up. And he always told me that he threw my letters to Rudy in the creek. Kidding me about it, you know, but I don't believe it.
Do you keep any of the letters? Do you have
Yes.
any? You do?
Yeah.
No kidding.
I keep threatening to find them and throw them away, but
She's hit him too well?
But he came to see me at Thanksgiving time. I was home in Spokane. My folks lived in Spokane.
Mm-hmm.
He came to see me at Thanksgiving, and we decided we'd get married at Christmas. So I quit teaching, quit my job. We got married in Spokane First Church 2 days after Christmas.
I'll show you those pictures.
I'd like to. Don't turn that off before you quit.